Pleasure to meet you here. This is Amanda Cooper with Cola Daily, and I'm so excited to have you speak with you today, especially about the 60th anniversary of desegregation here at the University of South Carolina. Being such an iconic leader in the civil rights movement, seeing the progress that has happened over the years, and you just did your book signing about the many faces. How does this make you feel?
Well, I feel good about it. And you know, the first time I came to University of South Carolina, I felt good. And I don't know whether I just met the good people, but South Carolina has a nice, easy pace about it. And many of the people seem to have grown up here. And it has remained a lot more southern than Atlanta. Atlanta's gotten so big now that, well, I guess we got what we asked for. And but I still miss some of the sweet, easygoing Southern life.
I bet you do. And when we talk about Southern life, your book, The Many Faces of Andrew Young, you've had so many different roles that you've played throughout your life. What do you think? Do you think the civil rights role was the most impactful, or is there another role that was more impactful that you feel to your contribution back to the community?
Well, frankly, I think everything I've done has grown out of really a spiritual calling. Martin Luther King never thought of himself as a civil rights worker. He thought of himself as a pastor who was doing God's work. And it's like the Apostle Paul. He didn't have a church. He moved around from place to place, preaching the gospel. And that's sort of the model we saw in the civil rights movement. And so it never bothered me that even though I was trained as a minister and I've pastored 2 or 3 churches, little churches way down south in the country, I enjoyed it. And I like living in a simple life in a simple community where everybody gets to know each other. And life moves a little slowly.
When we talk about life moving slowly, when I interviewed you, like I mentioned before, back before the pandemic in March of 2020, you were at a function at Clark Atlanta for HBCU African Initiative, and you were surrounded by these children from a Montessori Village, I believe, Montessori Village School. And you were talking about the future, and you were talking about how important it is for us to educate, how important education is. And you also mentioned about your parents and how being at an HBCU was impactful in your life because it drove that initiative. With the Supreme Court ruling recently in regards to affirmative action, putting all that you have into civil rights, what do you have to respond to that, and how do you think it's going to impact moments like this where we're celebrating the desegregation of this university?
Well, let me say that my 6th grade teacher took me to a federal courtroom to listen to Thurgood Marshall argue a case for equal salaries between black and white teachers. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what he was talking about, except that I saw the authority of a tall, slender, smart man. And he was calling out names of cases, and when the clerk of the court would go back in the library to look for the book and come back with it, he would say, "Your Honor, I think you'll find that on page 345. I said, "Good God Almighty, this man is brilliant." See? And I think the civil rights struggle was a necessary struggle to help America prepare for its role in leading the world. And we as a people suffered a lot, but the amazing thing is how many of us survived and how well we survived and how much we have contributed. There's almost nothing good happening in the United States that black folk didn't have something to do with. I mean, whether it's building the nation's capital or the lady who was doing the calculations for the space shuttle, the math teacher. And you think of people like Martin Luther King, and they not only changed the world, but they pulled in people like Jimmy Carter, who went on as president to carry on many of the things that Martin Luther King saw as his dream for America. I don't like to be called an optimist because I don't think the future is inevitable. But what I am is committed realist to say that we are strong enough to make sure that right prevails in our time. And that's basically what we did in the 60s and 70s. And as mayor in the 80s and 90s for me. I think the next generation will find a way to do the same thing, only it'll be different and it'll be easier. I don't think we're ever going to be without problems. But that's really the meaning of life, to struggle with existence and make it more like a heavenly vision of what human beings ought to be when they sit down at a table of brotherhood.
Very well put. I know I'm tight on time. I just want to wrap up by saying I know you're here tonight. You're about to go to the dinner with the president's dinner here at University of South Carolina. And one thing that he said in a statement was that this particular commemoration remembers the past and looks forward and is inspired in the future to continue diversity and inclusion in regards to, people having access to education. Would you, how does that make you feel being a part of that process and having this dream come true here in South Carolina?
Well, and it came true, and the dream came true in Georgia too. And it was a little different. I don't know whether South Carolina used its lottery money, but we did. And so we had a lot more money to put into education. And it's made a big difference in the personalities, in the race relations, in the economic possibilities and profitability of the state. And, well, some people look at the world and see what's wrong, and other people look at the world and see what it could be and ask why not. I think that's a Robert Kennedy quote that I picked up somewhere. But I'm still, why not make this a more beautiful, peaceful, loving community? And that's what I try to do.